Okay. Just okay. Okay. So good afternoon to all the students. Okay. Now we are going to start our lecture. Okay. First up, we will discuss which point we have covered in that last lecture. Okay. In that last lecture, we have started our new chapter, that is the hole making machine. Okay. Already we have discussed. We are knowing that in that chapter number 2. Okay. There we are having three types of machines are there, and that three types we want to study. What are the three types of machines are there? First is the drilling machine we can use for the making the holes. Then we can use the boring machine, and then we can use the broaching machine. Okay, that three machines we want to do the study of that three machines in this chapter. Okay, out of that first machine we have started, that is the drilling machine. The study of the drilling machine already we have started in that last lecture, and also we have covered some point regarding to the drilling machine. Which point we have covered in that last lecture? We have seen what is meant by the drilling machine. Okay, what is meant by the drilling operation, then working principle of that drilling operation, drilling machine, working principle of that drilling machine, and then we have studied the different types of the drilling machine. Okay, in that we have seen the portable type of drilling machine, then pillar type of drilling machine, radial type of the drilling machine, and their construction and working also we have studied. Okay, then we have studied regarding to the which type of operations. Okay, which type of operation we can perform on that drilling machines. That each and every operation also I have explained in that last lecture. Okay, now the agenda of our today's lecture is, okay, in this today's lecture we are going to start our next topic. That is the name of that topic is boring machine. Okay, the boring machine we are going to start in this lecture. Okay, before going to start the boring machine, first upon I would like to tell you the what is meant by that a boring operation. Okay, already we are knowing that that drilling machine we can use to produce the drilling or to produce the hole on that workpiece. We can use the drilling machine, then we can use the boring machine to produce the for making the boring operation, or to perform the boring operation we can use the boring machine. Now we are knowing that the purpose of boring machine is to perform the boring operation. Okay, the purpose of that boring machine is, or the boring machine we can use to perform the boring operation on the workpiece. Okay, we can use to perform the boring operation on the workpiece. Then we should know, first of all we should know what is meant by the boring operation. What is meant by that boring operation? Simply, what is meant by that boring operation? Boring operations means simply it is the process of enlarging the previously drilled hole with the help of the boring tools. Means, suppose we are having one workpiece is there. Suppose we have to consider, suppose we are having one simple workpiece is there, and on that workpiece suppose we have drilled one hole. Okay, with the help of that drilling tool we have drilled on that, we have drilled one simple hole on that workpiece. Suppose this is the workpiece is there, and on that workpiece we have drilled one hole is there. Suppose this is the hole is there. Okay, on that hole we have drilled with the help of drill bit on the drilling machine. Okay, now suppose the diameter of that drilled hole is, suppose the diameter of that drilled hole it will be 10 mm. Okay, 10 mm, and suppose we want to make the, or suppose we want to increase the diameter of that hole that already prepared or already we have produced hole on that workpiece, and suppose we want to increase the diameter of that drilled hole. Suppose I want to make the diameter of that hole from the 10 mm to the 12 mm. Now, up to the 10 mm, up to the 10 mm, suppose it is possible to perform the hole, or up to the 10 mm, suppose it is possible to produce the drill or that hole on that workpiece. But up to the, suppose we want to produce the, suppose we want to produce the hole up to the 12 mm, it is not possible on the drilling operation. Suppose now for this purpose, okay, so that I'm going to enlarging this hole from the 10 mm to 12 mm. Okay, for the enlargement of this hole, okay, to enlargement of that hole we can use the boring operation. Means boring operation is nothing but it is a simple process in which we can we can make the enlargement of already existing hole. We can make the enlargement of already existing hole with the help of boring tool. With the help of the boring tool, it is very important. With the help of the boring tool. Okay, the drilling operation we can perform with the help of the drill bit. Okay, in this manner we can perform the boring operation with the help of the boring tool. Then what is meant by that boring tool? Inside that boring tool, it consists of one boring bar is there, like this. Suppose it consists of one boring bar is there, and at the end of that boring bar we can attach one single point cutting tool. Okay, we can attach here one single point cutting tool, and that boring bar we can hold in the spindle. Okay, that function of this is the boring bar is here. Suppose this is the boring bar is there, and at the end of the boring bar we have attached here, or we have mounted here single point cutting tool is there. Okay, this is the single point cutting tool is there. And then suppose we have hold that boring bar in that spindle, along the spindle that boring bar is start to rotate, and the power that boring bar it will be transmit the power from that spindle to that single point cutting tool, and the single point cutting tool is also rotate along with this boring bar. And when we have insert this hole tool, it is called as the boring tool, into this hole, and we have to rotate that boring bar with the help of the spindle. That time it will be remove the material from that already existing hole, and it will be increase the diameter of that hole. Okay, simple. Boring operation is nothing but it is the process of increasing the diameter of already drilled hole. Okay, with the help of the boring tool. See, this is called as the boring tool. Simple. Then next point. Okay, everybody has understood. Boring operations means what? Boring operation, it is the simple process of enlarging the previously drilled hole. Okay, or another language also we can define. The boring operation is nothing but it is the operation of increasing the diameter of existing hole. With the help of the boring tool. Then what is meant by the boring tool? See, this is the simple boring tool is there. Inside that boring tool, one boring bar is there. Okay, and on that boring bar, at the end of that boring bar, the single point cutting tool is attached here, and that boring bar we can hold in the spindle, and that boring bar is also rotate along with the spindle. Okay, and when we have insert this boring bar along with this single point cutting tool into that existing hole, it will be that single point cutting tool, it will be remove the material from that existing hole, and the diameter of that existing hole is going to increasing. This process is called as the boring operation. Simple. Okay, now we will discuss regarding to the principle of that boring machine, how that boring machine is going to work. What is the principle? Simple. Suppose we are having, this is the one workpiece is there. Okay, suppose this will be the workpiece is there, and on that workpiece, suppose I have made the drilling operation. Okay, this is the driller. Okay, this is the drilling operation already I have performed on this workpiece. This is the hole I have produced the hole on this workpiece. Okay, this is the workpiece is there. Okay, then simply we are knowing that suppose this is the boring bar is here. Suppose this is the boring bar is there, and at the end of that boring bar we are knowing that we can attach the single point cutting tool is here. This is the single point cutting tool we can attach. This is the single point tool is here, and this is your boring bar is there, called as the boring bar is here. This is the workpiece is there, and on that workpiece already we have produced this hole is there. So now we want to increase the diameter of that hole. Now we want to increase the diameter of that already existing hole with the help of the boring machine. Okay, we are knowing that. See, this is the boring bar is here, and at the end of the boring bar we have attached one single point cutting tool is here. Okay, now in that boring machine, okay, according to their construction and according to their type, in that boring machine, your workpiece, okay, this workpiece, that workpiece it will be mounted on your table. Okay, and that workpiece it will be stationary or rotating according to your type of machine. For example, suppose you are considering here in this figure, your workpiece it will be stationary. Okay, it is mounted on table, and that boring bar or that boring tool it will be rotating. Okay, the boring tool it will be rotating, and also as well as along the rotation of that boring bar also we can reciprocate this boring tool in this direction also. Okay, means in this figure, suppose you have understood, also along the rotation of that boring bar, also we can give the feed to the tool, and so we can give the feed to the tool. And here that workpiece is remain constant. Okay, with the help of this principle, we can perform the boring operation on the boring machine. Okay, this condition also change according to the type of machine. Okay, in some machine we can give the feed to the that boring tool, and also we can rotate the boring tool, or in the some type of the machine we can give the feed with the help of this workpiece or table. Means that workpiece is in some type of machine, that workpiece is rotating, and your boring tool it will remain constant. Okay, with this principle, okay, with this principle we can perform the boring operation on the boring machine. Simply you have to understood, here is one boring bar is there. On at the end of that boring bar we have attached one single point cutting tool is here. That workpiece is mounted on the table, and that workpiece is kept as stationary. Okay, and at the end of that boring bar, okay, a single point cutting tool is already we have fixed. And in this condition, just we have to rotate that boring bar, and we have to feed that boring bar into the workpiece, so that that single point cutting tool it will be remove the material from that workpiece, and it will be enlarging the diameter of that hole. It will be enlarging the diameter of that workpiece. That operation is called as the boring operation. Simple. Okay, on this principle we can perform the boring operation on the boring machine. Simple. Okay, it means that here the single point cutting tool is mounted on the boring bar. See, this is the boring bar is here, and on that boring bar single point cutting tool is already we have mounted, and boring bar is rotated. Okay, we have to rotate the boring bar, as well as we have to reciprocate that boring bar into that workpiece, and that workpiece we have to keep the constant. On this principle we can perform the boring operation on that boring machine. This is the basic simple operations principle of that boring machine. Okay. Okay, first up, you have to remember boring operation means it is the process of enlarging the diameter of existing hole with the help of the boring tool. And the principle of the boring machine is the single point cutting tool is mounted on the boring bar. Okay, and then we have to rotate that boring bar, as well as we have to give the reciprocating motion to that boring bar, and we have to keep the workpiece as the constant, so that the due to the rotary motion of that boring bar and the giving the feed to that boring bar, that single point cutting tool which is attached to the end of that boring bar, it will be remove the material from that workpiece, and it will be enlarging the diameter of that existing hole. Okay, this is the basic principle and boring operations. Okay, then I will discuss regarding the boring machines. See, this is the basic introduction of that boring machine. What is the basic function of that boring machine? Why we are going to use the boring machine? The function, there are the two functions of that boring machines are there. First is the primary function, and second is the secondary function. That boring machine it will be perform, the two types of functions. First is the primary function, then second is the secondary function. Then what is meant by the primary function? The primary function of that boring machine is that boring machine should be perform the boring operation, or simple we can say that the boring machine we can use to perform the boring operation. Then what is meant by the boring operation? That already I have explained. Then the another function of that boring machine is, that is the secondary function of that boring machine is, on that boring machine, or that boring machine should be performed, or on another we can say that that boring machine also we can use to perform the operations like pacing operation, drilling operation, trimming operation. Okay, such type of the operation also we can perform on that boring operation. It means that boring machine just only we cannot use for the boring operation. We can also make the another use of that boring machine. Means on that boring machine we can also perform the such type of the operation, pacing operation, drilling operation, trimming operation. Such type of operation also we can perform on that boring machine with the help of suitable tools. That is the important point. With the help of the suitable tools we can perform such type of the operation also on that boring machine. But basic main function of that boring machine is we have to perform the boring operation. That is the main function of that boring machine with the help of the boring tool. And also with the help of the suitable tool, or with the help of the suitable arrangement, also we can perform the facing operation, drilling operation, reaming operation. Okay, number of operation we can perform with the help of the boring machine. But we have to require the different types of tools and different types of attachment or okay settings. Then also we have discussed in during the drilling machine. In that drilling machine also, okay, in that drilling machine also we can perform the boring operation. Then why it is necessary to develop the boring machine? Because already we have explained in that drilling machine. Okay, with the help of that drilling machine also we can perform the boring operation. Then why we are going to developing that boring machine separately? Because in that drilling machine also we can perform the boring operation. But okay, suppose we are having heavy work pieces there, suppose we are having very heavy and large work pieces there. Okay, for such type of the workpiece or such type of the workpiece we cannot hold and rotate with the help of that drilling machine and lathe machine. Okay, suppose we are having very big work pieces there, like engine block is there. Okay, for example, suppose we are having one engine block is there, and on that engine block suppose we want to produce the boring operations. Okay, on that engine block suppose we want to perform the boring operation, and that engine block it is possible to hold on that lathe machine or in that drilling machine it is not possible to hold that such type of the heavy large workpiece with the help of drilling machine, and with the help of that lathe machine it is not possible to rotate such type of the heavy workpiece, and to hold such type of the workpiece it is not possible with the help of the drilling machine and lathe machine. So that to perform the operation, that is the to perform the boring operation on heavy duty workpiece, large workpiece, or such type of the workpiece which is not we can hold or we can rotate with the help of the drilling and lathe machine. To perform the boring operation on such type of the workpiece, we have to use the boring machine. Okay. Here, that boring machine is used to perform the boring operation on the large and heavy workpiece, such as the engine frame. It means that with the help of the boring machine, we can perform the boring operation on the engine frame. Then we can perform the boring operation on the engine cylinder. Then machine housing is there. Okay, to perform the boring operation on such type of the workpiece. Okay, to perform the boring operation on such type of the workpiece, we have to require boring machine. Because to perform the to perform the boring operation on such type of the workpiece, it is not possible with the help of the drilling machine and lathe machine, because its size is very high and it is heavy duty workpiece is there. Okay, you have to remember to perform the boring operation on the heavy duty workpiece, we have to require the boring machine. Okay, that heavy duty workpiece we cannot bore with the help of the drilling and lathe machine. Okay, what are that heavy workpiece are there? For example, engine frame is there, then steam engine cylinder is there, machine housing is there. Okay, these are the heavy duty workpieces there. And to perform or to make the boring operation on such type of the workpiece, we have to require the boring machines only. Simple. See here, in that boring machine, that single point cutting tool is used as the boring tool. Okay, already I have explained. In that boring machine, we are having one boring tool is there, means suppose we are having one boring bar is there, and at the end of the boring bar we are going to attach here one single point cutting tool is here. Okay, see here the boring machine, the single point cutting tool is used as the boring tool is here, and the boring tool is, see, this is the boring tool. That single point cutting tool is also called as the boring tool, and that single point cutting tool means that is the boring tool we have to mount on the boring bar. See, this is the boring bar, and that boring bar we are going to attaching the single point cutting tool. It is called as the boring tool is there. Okay, understood? Okay, once again I will revise boring operations. What is meant by the boring operation? Boring operations means it is the process or it is the operation in which we can enlarge the diameter of already existing hole with the help of the boring tool. Okay, that boring tool means it consists of one boring bar is there, and at the end of the boring bar we have to attach a single point cutting tool is there. Then what is the principle of that boring machine? Simple. Principle of boring machine is, okay, in that one single point cutting tool we can mount on that boring bar is there, and that single point cutting tool on that boring bar we can rotate with the help of the spindle, and also we can give the feed to that boring bar, and we have to keep the workpiece as a stationary, so that that single point cutting tool, it will be remove the metal from the workpiece. Okay, then boring machine. Okay, there are two functions of boring machine is there. Means simply we can say that boring machine we can use to perform the boring operation on the heavy duty workpiece. Okay, and also with the help of the boring machine, also we can perform the drilling operation, facing operation, turning operation, remaining operation. Also we can perform on the boring machine. But for this purpose, we have to require, okay, different types of the tools and special types of attachment also we have to require. Okay, and then that boring operation also we can perform on that drilling machine and lathe machine also. But that heavy duty workpiece, it is not possible to hold and rotate with the help of that drilling machine and the lathe machine, so that it is required to use the boring machine. Okay, say then next point is the classification of the boring machine. Okay, how that boring machine is going to classify. Simple. See here, these are the classification of that boring machine is. The first type of the boring machine is horizontal type of boring machine is there. Horizontal type of boring machine is there. Why it is called as the horizontal boring machine? Because in this type of the machine, okay, the position of the spindle, it will be horizontal. The position of the spindle, it will be horizontal, so that it is called as the horizontal boring machine. The next type of the boring machine is vertical boring machine. Why it is called as the vertical boring? Because in this type of the machine, the position of spindle, it will be vertical. The position of spindle, it will be vertical, like this. Okay, then jig boring machine. What is meant by that jig boring machine? Simply you have to remember that or such type of the boring machine, that is a jig boring machine, we can use to perform the boring operation very accurately or precisely. Okay, suppose we want to produce boring operation very accurately and precisely, that time we should use the jig boring machines. Okay, and this is the special type boring machine. These are the basic four types of boring machines are there. Okay, this is about the introduction regarding to that boring machines. Okay, now we will discuss one by one each and every types of that boring machine. Okay, see, this is the first type of horizontal boring machine. Okay, sorry, this is the first type of that boring machine is horizontal boring machine is there. See, this is the first type of that boring machine is the horizontal type of boring machine. Now we will discuss regarding that horizontal boring machine. In that we will discuss construction and working of that horizontal boring machine. Okay, say this is the picture or this is the line diagram of that horizontal boring machine. Okay, similar function. Already we are knowing that boring. What is meant by that? Boring means it is the process of enlarging the existing hole. Boring means it is the process of enlarging the diameter of that existing hole with the help of the boring tool. Okay, and here horizontal. Why this boring machine is called a horizontal? Because in that horizontal boring machine, whatever the spindle we are going to using, the position of that, see, this is the spindle here. Okay, inside that headstock, we are knowing that here one spindle is there, and the position of that spindle or in that horizontal boring machine, the spindle, it will be rotate in horizontally like this. Okay, spindle, it will be rotating in this direction horizontally. Or the position of the spindle, it will be horizontal, so that this machine has given name as the horizontal boring machine. Simple. Okay. See, now we will discuss the construction and working of that horizontal boring machine. See, this is the basic line diagram for the horizontal boring machine. Now, first of all, we will see the which parts are present in that horizontal boring machine. Means, first of all, we will discuss the construction. See, in that horizontal boring machine, okay. See, in this horizontal boring machine, first part is consist, that is the bed. This first part, that is the bed of your horizontal boring machine is there. The next part, see, this is the part number 2. It is called as the headstock. It is called as the headstock is there. Then this is the third point, or this is the third part of that horizontal boring machine is the headstock supporting column. It is called as the column, or also we can call it as headstock supporting column is there. Okay, then next part, that is the end supporting column is there. This is the part number 4, that is the end supporting column is there. Then next part is the table. Part number 5 is the table of your machine. This is the table is there. Then part number 6 is the saddle. See, this is the saddle. part number 6, saddle is there. Okay, then see here, it is called as the it is called as the bearing block. Okay, bearing block is there, and this part, the next part, that is the 7 and 8 number part, is the boring bar is there. See, this is the boring bar. Boring bar is there. Okay, these are the basic parts of your horizontal machine. Okay, what are that basic part of horizontal machine? It consists of the bed is there. Simple say, this portion is called as the bed is here. Bed is here. Then headstock is here. Then headstock supporting column is here. Then boring head is here. This is the boring bar is there. Okay, and on that boring bar, this is the boring tool is mounted here. This is the workpiece is there. Then this is the end supporting column is here. Then saddle is there. Okay, then cross slide is there, table is there. Okay, these are the basic part of boring machine. Now we will discuss the construction of that horizontal boring machine. Simple. Okay, the purpose of that horizontal boring machine is same. What is the function of that horizontal boring machine? Same. The function of that horizontal boring machine is to perform the boring operation, okay, on that workpiece. To perform the boring operation on the workpiece. Okay, on that workpiece already we have produced one drill is here, and now with the help of that horizontal boring machine we can make the enlargement of that hole. And okay, we are knowing that in that horizontal boring machine the position of spindle, it will be horizontally. Simple. Now we will discuss the construction of that horizontal boring machine. Okay, see the construction in that horizontal boring machine. It consists of the table is here. Okay, on that table, okay, the table, it is made up from the cast iron, and the function of that table is to, to provide the support to that all the members. Okay, whatever parts are present in that horizontal boring machine, to that all part, that bed is going to support. Okay, that bed is support to that column. Okay, again that bed is going to support to that headstock, that saddle, cross slide, then end supporting column. Okay, for that all the parts, okay, the function of bed is to make the or provide the support to that all the part of horizontal boring machine. Then next is that bed, it is made up from the cast iron. Okay, so that it having the high compression strength is there. Simple, this is the bed. Okay, then next part is the on that bed. Okay, on that bed we are going to mount at the end of this bed, or at the one side of this bed, again we have mounted here one vertical column is here. See, this is the vertical column. Okay, or also it is called as the headstock column. Why it is called as the headstock column? Because on this column we are going to mount this headstock, and this column, this vertical column, it going to make support, or it going to provide the support to that headstock. Okay, so it is called as the headstock column is there. Okay, once again I will repeat. Okay, on that bed, okay, on the one side of that bed we are going to mount one vertical column is there. That vertical column is called as the headstock column, because on this column we are going to provide the headstock of your horizontal boring machine, and and that column and this vertical column, it will provide the support to that headstock. Okay, and the another point is on that headstock column, okay, or on that vertical column we are going to provide one guideways are also provided on the space of this column. Okay, on the space of this column guideways are also provided. Okay, whatever guideways we have seen in that lathe machine, such type of the guideways are provided on the space of this vertical column. Okay, this is about the this headstock column. The next part is, okay, on this column, okay, on this vertical column we are going to mount our next part of your horizontal machine is the headstock. Okay, that headstock is going to mounted on this vertical column, and that headstock is the main part of your horizontal machine. Okay, this is the main part of that horizontal boring machine, and inside that headstock, see, this portion is called as the headstock is here, and inside that headstock it consists of all the driving mechanism and the spindle mechanism. Okay, whatever the mechanism I have to require to drive the spindle. Okay, such type of all the mechanism, that is the driving mechanism and the spindle mechanism, that all mechanism are present inside this headstock, and that headstock is mounted on this vertical column. Simple. Okay, and see here, this already we have told you on this vertical column the guideways are provided. See, suppose these are the guideways. Okay, on this guideway, okay, on this guideway we can move up and down movement of that headstock. Also we can perform the up and down. Okay, we can perform up and down movement of that headstock on this column, because on this face of that vertical column we have provided guideways. Or also here we can use here one elevating screw is here. With the help of that elevating screw and with the help of that guideways provided on the face of that vertical column, we can perform the up and down movement of that headstock. It means that we can move this headstock up and down on this vertical column. Okay, then next part of that horizontal boring machine is the this end support column. This is called as the end support column is here. Okay, end support column. That end support column, it is mounted on the another side of your bed. Okay, the another side of bed we can mount the end supporting column is here. Okay, and on this end supporting column, okay, and on this end supporting column we can attach one bearing block is there. Okay, we can attach one bearing block is here. Okay, the function of that bearing block is to support to that boring bar. See, this is the boring bar is here. Okay, this is the boring bar is here, and it is a very long boring bar is here. Okay, because one side of that boring bar is going to hold in that spindle, and another side of that boring bar we can hold in that, or we can support the another side of that boring bar with the help of that bearing block, and that bearing block we can mount it on this end support. Okay, then next part of your horizontal boring machine is the table. So this is the table is here, and that table is mounted on your cross slide. Okay, so this is the cross slide is here, and on that cross slide we can mount the table, and the function of table is to hold the workpiece. Okay, the function of this table is to hold the workpiece, and on this table, okay, on this table we have provided one number of T slots are there. See, these are the T slots are provided on this table. Okay, and with the help of that T slot we can hold the workpiece. Okay, simply how to remember, the function of table is to hold the workpiece, and on that table we have provided the T slots for the clamping the workpiece, and okay, and that table is mounted on the cross slide. Okay, with the help of this cross slide, okay, with the help of this cross slide we can move this table in this transfer direction. Okay, with the help of this cross slide we can move this table in transverse direction. You have to imagine transverse movement. Okay, means crosswise movement, simple. With the help of that cross slide, this table we can move in crosswise direction, simple. The next part is the saddle. So this is the saddle, and that saddle it is mounted on your bed. Okay, and also on this bed, okay, also on this bed the guideways are also provided. Okay, it means that with the help of this saddle, or okay, or this saddle we can move in this direction. Okay, the saddle we can move longitudinally on this bed. Okay, once again I will repeat, the saddle it is mounted on the bed. Okay, and that bed, on that bed the guideways are also provided, and with the help of that guideway we can move this saddle in longitudinal direction, in this direction. Okay, in this direction also we can move this saddle. Okay, these are the simple construction of your horizontal boring machine. Okay, in construction it consists of the bed is there, it is made from the cast iron, and the function of bed is to provide the support to the all the part of your boring machine. Then at the one end of, at the one side of bed we have mount one vertical column is there, and on that vertical column we have mounted the headstock is there, and on that vertical column one guideways are also provided. Okay, and the headstock is nothing but it is the main part of that horizontal boring machine, and inside that headstock it consists of the all the driving mechanisms are also present in that headstock. Okay, and we can move this headstock up and down on this vertical column, because on that vertical column the guideway is also provided. Okay, see here, see the working how that horizontal boring machine is going to work here. Okay, here we can mount one electrical motor. Okay. Here one electrical motor will be there. Okay, but in this line diagram it is not going to show here. Please see this diagram. This is the diagram. This is the bed is here. Okay, okay, both the end of that bed, the two columns are provided. See, this is the headstock column is here. This is the end supporting column is here. Okay, this is the saddle is there. Okay, this saddle we can move longitudinally. Okay, and on this saddle, and the cross slide is there, and on that cross slide the table is there, and we can move this table in transverse direction like this here. Okay, see, this is the headstock is here, and inside that headstock it consists of the all driving mechanism here there. And see, in this side we are going to mount electrical motor is there. Okay, electrical motor is there, and this is the spindle is there. Okay, on this spindle we can mount the boring tool is here. Okay, simple. How that horizontal boring machine is going to work here is when we are giving the supply to that electrical motor, or when we are going to start that electrical motor, your spindle is going to start to rotate, and along this spindle your that boring tool is also rotating. Okay, boring tool is also going to rotate, and here your workpiece is there. Okay, inside that workpiece, okay, first up on we have to set this workpiece with respect to that tool, and then we have to start the machine. Means we have to start the electrical motor so that that spindle is going to start rotate. And when your spindle is start rotate, that time your this boring tool is also start rotate, and it will be remove the material from that whole of your workpiece. Means it will be perform the boring operation. Simple. Okay, this is about the horizontal boring machine. Okay, any problem is there? Whether you understood? Hello? Hello? Hello?
Yes, sir.
Whether you understood or not?
Understood, sir.
Hello, please give the reply. Whether you understood this
Yes, sir.
construction working of that horizontal boring machine? Hello?
Yes, sir.
What about others? Okay.
Yes, sir.
So
Yes, sir.
once again I will summarize this horizontal boring machine. Simple. Boring operations means it is the process of enlarging the diameter of already existing hole. Already, suppose this hole already we have performed, and suppose we want to increase the diameter of this hole, that time we can perform boring operation. Simple. This is the horizontal boring machine. Inside that horizontal boring machine, why it is called as the horizontal boring machine? Because the position of spindle, it will be horizontally. Okay, it means that we are going to mount the spindle horizontally. Simple. And see, this is the basic part of that horizontal boring machines are bed is there. Function of bed is to provide the support to that all the parts. Then it consists of the one vertical column is here at the one side of bed. We are going to use or mount one vertical column is here. On that vertical column, guideway is also provided. Okay, and again in this column we have mounted the headstock is there. Inside that headstock, all the driving mechanism also present here. Okay, then this headstock we can move up and down with the help of this guideways which is provided on that vertical column. Okay, then another column, it is called as the end support is there. Okay, on this column we are going to use the bearing block is here, and with the help of the bearing block we can support this boring bar. Okay, and on this boring bar, see, this is the boring bar is here, and on that boring bar we have mounted the tool. Okay, that tool is called as the boring tool is mounted on that boring bar, and this is the workpiece is there. And in this workpiece already, suppose, see, already that hole is going to provided. So this is the workpiece is there, and on this workpiece already that hole is going to provided here. And now see here, now we are going to enlarging this hole with the help of that boring tool here. Okay, the spindle, suppose inside that headstock there is spindle is here, and inside that spindle we can hold this boring tool is here. When your electrical motor is start, that time your spindle is going to start rotate. Okay, along with the spindle your this boring bar is also start to rotate, and when boring bar or that boring bar, it is going to transmit the power to that boring tool is also. Okay, so that along with that boring bar, your boring tool is also start to rotate inside this workpiece, and it will be remove the metal from that workpiece, and it will be enlarging the diameter of that workpiece. Okay, so then okay, you have to remember which type of motion we can adapt in this horizontal boring machine. Simple, see here, we can move. Simple here, we can move saddle in longitudinal direction. Okay, longitudinal direction with the help of the saddle. or the saddle we can move longitudinally on the bed. This motion also we have got in this horizontal boring machine. Then next, okay, with the help of this table or with the help of that cross slide, we can move the table in transverse direction. This motion also we can use in this horizontal motion, horizontal boring machine. Then next, okay, with the help of this vertical column, with the help of this vertical column and the guideways guideways are provided on this vertical column, that headstock, okay, this headstock we can move up and down. This headstock we can move up and down. Okay, that headstock also we can move up and down. Okay, this is the motion. The next motion is we can rotate the spindle. Okay, we can rotary motion of that spindle is there, and this spindle also we can move in and out in this direction. Also we can move the spindle in and out in this direction. Okay, that much motion we can use in the horizontal boring machine. Okay, so you understood the basic construction and working of the horizontal boring machine. Simple. Understood? Yes or no? Hello, please anyone.
Yes, sir.
Okay, now we will discuss. Now we will discuss. See, this is the actual horizontal boring machine is here. See, this is the bed is here. Okay, on that bed, saddle is provided. On that saddle, this is the cross slide is there, and on that cross slide, this is the table is provided. Okay, on that table, see, this is the this is the T slots are also provided for clamping purpose. See, this is the vertical column is here. On that here vertical column, we have mounted. This is the headstock is here, and inside the headstock, see here we have attached one electrical motor is there, and inside that headstock it consists of all the driving mechanism, means all the gear, pulleys, like this. Okay, such type of all power transmission elements are also provided in this headstock. Okay, and see here on this vertical column, see, this is the guideways also provided. See, these are the guideways also provided, and with the help of this guideway we can move up and down this headstock. We can move up and down this headstock. Okay, and see, this is the another column is here. It is called as the end support column is here, and on this end support column we have provided one bearing block is here. See, this is the bearing block. Okay, see, this is the bearing block is provided, and with the help of the bearing block we can hold this boring bar. See, this is the boring bar is here, and for boring bar is supported with the help of that bearing block is here, and that bearing block we can mount it on this supports. Okay, and on this boring bar here, on this boring bar also we can mount here that boring tool is here. Okay, we can mount here boring tool is here, like this. Simple. Okay, and that boring bar is going to fix inside that spindle. Okay, and here suppose our workpiece is there. Okay, when that electrical motor is start, that spindle is also start rotate. Along the spindle, that boring bar is start rotate, and on that boring bar already we have mounted the boring tool, so that along with the boring bar, that boring tool is also start rotate, and it will be remove the material from that workpiece. Okay, you have to imagine how that workpiece is mounted here. Suppose this is the workpiece. In this fashion, workpiece is mounted, and inside that workpiece we have to first of all fix this boring tool, and then we have to rotate so that it will remove the material. Okay, this is the actual picture for that horizontal boring machine. Okay, and on that headstock, you have to remember, on that headstock the hand wheels and levers are provided for the stop, or increase the speed, or for the change the motion, rotary motion, to change the motion of the spindle. For this purpose we are going to provide these levers and hand wheels. Okay, now see, this is the next or another type of boring machine, that is the vertical boring machine is there. So this is the next type of boring machine, that is the vertical boring machine is there. Okay, then again that vertical boring machine is also perform the same operation, that is the boring operation. To perform the boring operation also we can use the vertical boring machines. Okay, see here, then what is the difference between horizontal boring machine and vertical boring machine? Okay, in that horizontal boring machine the position of spindle it will be horizontal, and here in that vertical boring machine the position of your spindle it will be vertically. Okay, your spindle is going to mount it vertically in vertical boring machine, and in that horizontal boring machine your spindle is mounted in horizontally. Okay, see, this is the basic difference. Then another basic difference is in that horizontal boring machine. Okay, in that horizontal boring machine, your spindle is rotating. Okay, your spindle is means your that boring tool is rotating. Okay, in that horizontal boring machine, already we have seen your spindle is rotating, means your boring tool is rotating, and your workpiece is kept stationary on your table. Or okay, in that horizontal boring machine, your spindle is rotating and workpiece is stationary. But in that vertical boring machine, you have to remember, in that vertical boring machine, we are going to rotate your workpiece. Okay, in that vertical boring machine, we are going to rotate the workpiece and we are going to keep this boring tool as the stationary. Okay, in this fashion we can perform the boring operation in the vertical boring machine. Okay, so this is the basic difference between the vertical boring machine and horizontal boring machine. Okay, see here the construction and working of that vertical boring machine. See, this is the real type of vertical boring machine is there, and this is the line diagram for the vertical boring machine is there. Okay, same. See the first upon see the basic parts of that vertical boring machine is there. Say again, similar parts are there. Again, in that vertical boring machine, it consists of the bed is here. Okay, bed. Then next part is, see here, it consists of the two columns are there. Two vertical columns are present in that vertical boring machine. Okay, one vertical column is mounted on the one side of your bed. See, this is the one number of, this is the first vertical column. It is mounted on the one side of your bed. Then see, this is the second vertical column. It is mounted on the other side of your bed. Okay, in this vertical column, it consists of the two columns are there. Then next, the table. See, this is the table is there. Okay, next part is the table, and the table it is mounted on the bed. See here. Okay, this is the bed is here. Okay, and on that bed this table is mounted. Okay, and that table it will be in circular shape. Okay, the circular shape of table it is mounted on the bed. Okay, and it is rotating. This table we can rotate about its vertical axis. Suppose this is the vertical axis is there, and in this fashion, okay, in this fashion we can rotate this table. It is the rotary table we can mount it on this bed. Simple. Okay, because already I have explained, in the vertical boring machine we are going to rotate the workpiece, so that to rotating the workpiece we can use this rotary table. Okay, it is mounted on the bed. The next part of that vertical boring machine is the cross rail. See, this is the next part. It is called as the cross rail. This is the this casing, that rectangular casing is there. It is called as the rectangular casing, or also we can call it is the cross rail is there. And that cross rail, see, this portion is called as the cross rail, and that cross rail we can mount it on this two vertical column. Then on this cross rail, the next part of that vertical boring machine is, it consists of tool heads. Okay, one or two tool heads we can use in that vertical boring machine. See, and that tools we can mount it on that cross rail. Okay, these are the basic parts of vertical boring machine. You have to remember, in that vertical boring machine, the position of your stool it will be vertical, or position of your spindle it will be vertical. Simple. And in that vertical boring machine we are going to rotate the workpiece with the help of this rotary table. Okay, then we will discuss the construction. See here, construction. This is the bed. It is mounted, or it is put on the floor. Okay, it is raised on your floor. Okay, then that bed it is the provide support to the all the parts. Okay, what is the function of that bed? That bed it is going to provide the support to that all the part, and inside that bed it consists of driving mechanism of that spindle. Suppose we want to rotate this spindle, so that we have to require some driving mechanisms are there, and that driving mechanism it is present inside this bed. That bed is nothing but it is the hollow circular shapes of bed is there. Okay, what is this bed? This bed it will be looking like this hollow circular shape of bed is there. So this is the circular hollow bed is there, and on that bed or inside that bed it consists of the driving mechanism, and also it consists of the coolant is also present inside this bed. Okay, you have to remember that bed is nothing but it is the main part of your vertical boring machine. Okay, and inside that bed we can, or inside that bed it consists of the driving mechanism of that table, and also we can contain, or also we can put the coolant which are required to all the parts. That coolant is also provided, that coolant is also present in this bed. Okay, then on this bed, okay, on this bed the rotary table is mounted. Okay, the whatever mechanisms are present in that bed, with the help of the mechanism we can rotate this table. Okay, we can rotate this table, and on this table we can mount your workpiece. Okay, see here, and both the side of your bed, okay, on the both the side of the bed we can attach two vertical columns are there. See, on the one side we have mounted one vertical column, and another side of that bed also we can mount the vertical columns are there. And on this vertical column, okay, on this vertical column we have fixed guideways. Also we have provided guideways on this face of this vertical column. Okay, on this vertical column also we have provided the guideways, and also on this column, or on this face of vertical column also we are going to provide the guideways. Means both the columns, on the both the columns we are going to provide the guideways. Then what is the function of the guideways? Okay, see here. Okay, then on this both, on the help of this both the column, okay, on the, or with the help of that both the column, okay, we have cross rail is also mounted on the column. Okay, that next part, that is the cross rail, it is mounted on this both the column, or with the help of that both the column we can hold this cross rail. Okay, and also on this cross rails also, okay, this is the horizontal member is there, and on this cross rail also we are going to provide the guideways. Okay, here on this column also we are going to provide the guideways, and also on this cross rails also we are going to provide the guideways are there. See here, and on this cross rail, okay, on this horizontal cross rail, or that cross rail, it will be parallel to the table. Okay, and on this cross rail we are going to mount two tool heads are there, two tool heads are there. Okay, one or two tool heads we can mount it on this cross rail. Okay, okay, and already we have explained on this cross rail, on this cross rail the guideways are also provided, so that with the help of this guideways, okay, with the help of this guideways, this tool head we can move in this direction, left or right. Okay, with the help of this guideway which are provided on this cross rail, with the help of this guideway also we can move this tool head in this direction. Okay, right or left. Okay, we can also perform the movement of this tool head left or right with the help of this guideways. Okay, then what is the function of that tool heads? With the help of the tool head, okay, the function of that tool head is to hold the boring tool. Okay, inside that tool heads we can mount the boring tools are there. The function of that tool head, the function of that tool head is to hold the boring tool. Say these are the boring tools are there, and this boring tool we can hold inside that tool heads. Okay, okay, and see, this is the table, and on that table we can mount the workpiece. Okay, we can mount the workpiece, and that workpiece we can rotate. First of all we have to adjust the length, adjust the height between the workpiece and the this boring tool. Okay, first of all we have to adjust the height between the this boring tool and workpiece. Okay, with the help of this moment. Which moment? With the help of this upward and downward movement of your cross rail, and this left and right movement of your tool head. With the help of this moment we have to adjust the height of your workpiece, and then we have to rotate this workpiece, and then we can perform the boring operation. Okay, simple. This is the vertical boring machine. Okay, understood? In that vertical boring machine, you have to remember, in that vertical boring machine we are going to rotate the workpiece with the help of the rotary table, and then we can insert the boring tool into that workpiece, and then we have to give the feed to that this boring tool. Okay, means we can move this tool holder in up and down direction also. In this direction also we can move. Okay, The tool holder also we can move up and down. Okay, with the help of this moment, with the help of that up and down moment of that tool post, okay, we can go the feed to that boring tool. Okay, in this manner we can perform the boring operation on the vertical boring machine. You have to remember which motion we can use in this boring machine. Simple, so that you will understood. Okay, first motion is rotary motion of table. That table, it is providing the rotary motion. Then this cross rail also we can move up and down with the help of the guideways on that column. Okay, that cross rail also we can move up and down on this guideways. Then third motion we can achieve in this vertical machine is this tool holder. Okay, this tool holder we can move left and right with the help of guideways provided on this cross rails. Okay, and also okay, and also we can move this up and down also. Okay, that much motions we can use, or with the help of that all the motion we can perform the boring operation on the vertical boring machine. Okay, okay, understood. Means whatever tool, you have to remember, whatever tool we are going to use here, that tool we can move up and down as simple. Okay, and here this moment, with the help of this moment, with the help of this vertical movement of your cross rail, then we can make we can adjust the height of that workpiece. Okay, you have to remember which motion we can rotate the table. Okay, we can move the up and down this cross rail, then we can move left and right movement of that tool post, and with the help of that tool holder, okay, such type of the mechanism also provided. That spindle also we can move up and down here. Okay, spindle means that boring tools. Okay, this is about the vertical boring machine. Okay, okay, means you have to remember this tool holder जे आहे पूर्णपणे ह्या टूल होल्डर आपण अप अँड डाऊन नाही करू शकत. ह्यातला जो काय बोरिंग टूल आहे तो आपण ऍडजस्ट करू शकतो. That point you have to remember. Okay, this is about the vertical boring machine. Okay, whether you understood? Yes, please, anyone
Yes, sir.
understood or not?
Yes, sir.
Okay, then last type of the boring machine is the jig boring machine is there. Jig type boring machine is there. Okay, then what is the function of that jig type boring machine? Simple, it is the again very simple type of that boring machine is jig type boring machine. Okay, already I have explained the horizontal boring machine, then vertical boring machine, and then the third last type of that boring machine is the jig type boring machine. Okay, you have to see here, you have to remember that jig type of the boring machine. Okay, that jig type of the boring machine we can use for the facial application only. Okay, such type of the boring machine we can use for the facial type of application. Okay, it is used where high accuracy is required. Okay, okay, suppose we want to or suppose we want to perform the boring operation, and that boring operation, for such type of boring operation, suppose we have to require very high accuracy. Okay, or suppose we want to produce the very high accurate and very high precise boring operation is required. Okay, for such type, for such condition we can use the jig boring machine. You have to remember we can use the jig boring machine for the high accuracy and high precise operations. Means a jig boring machine is also used for performing the boring operation. Okay, suppose we want to perform the boring operation on jig. Okay, whether you have seen the jig picture. Okay, suppose we want to perform the boring operation on the jig. Suppose we want to perform the boring operation on the fixture. Suppose we want to perform the boring operation on the dies. Okay, suppose we want to perform the boring operation on measuring instrument. Okay, measuring instrument, because these all the instruments are a very precise instrument. Okay, and here we want to require the accuracy. Okay, here we want to require the accuracy for perform the boring operation on such type of the equipment, to perform the boring operation on the such type of the equipment, we can use the jig boring machine. Okay, for this purpose, because here, because where we want, here we want to require very high accuracy. Okay, whenever we want to require the very high accuracy during the boring operation, that time you have to remember you have to use the jig boring machine. Okay, then also we can perform the boring, drilling, countersinking, reaming operation with the help of this jig boring machine also. Simple. See the construction and working of that jig boring machine. Okay, see, this is the picture of that. This is the land diagram for the jig boring machine. See, it consists of the bed is here. Again, same function of that bed. It will be provide the support to that all the parts. Also, it is made up from the cast iron so that it having the high compressive strength is there, and also it will be provide the support to the all the part of your jig boring machine. Okay, then on the bed, see on the bed on the bed we are going to mount here one saddle is here, and this saddle, okay, this saddle also we can move in longitudinal direction. Okay, see, this saddle we can move in longitudinal direction, and on this saddle we are mounted the table, and on that table we can mount your workpieces here. Okay, see, this is the one vertical column is here. See, please see this figure so that you will understood easily. See, this is the base, means this is the bed is here. On that bed we can mount the saddle is there, and on the saddle we have mounted this workpiece is there. Sorry, table is there. On the table we have mounted the workpiece is there. See, this is the one vertical column is here. Okay, and on that vertical column we are going to mount here one. See, this is called as the spindle housing is there. See, this is the spindle housing we are mounted on this vertical column. Okay, on that vertical column we are going to mounted this spindle housing is there. It is called as the spindle housing is there. Then this portion is called as the spindle head is here. So this is the spindle head is here. Okay, these are the basic part of your jig boring machine. What are the basic part of jig boring machine? Inside the jig boring machine, it consists of the bed is here. On that bed, saddle is mounted. On that saddle, table is mounted, and on the table we are going to mount the workpiece is here. Okay, also it consists of the one vertical column is here, and on that vertical column we are going to attach one spindle housing quill is here. See, this is called as the spindle housing quill is there, and at the top we are going to mount here spindle head is there. Then what is the function? Okay, see here the function of the spindle head here. Inside the spindle here we are going to use the all the power transmission unit. Okay, all the driving mechanism and power transmission element we can hold with the help of the spindle head, and also we are going to hold the spindle also here. This is the spindle head. Inside that spindle head we can hold the all power transmission units are there. Okay, then here say spindle supporting element is here. See, this is the spindle supporting element is here, and here we are going to mount it as spindle housing quill is here. See, this portion is called as the spindle housing quill is here. Okay, okay, with the help of this housing, okay, with the help of this housing or that housing we can move up and down. The spindle housing we can move up and down. Here we can move up and down. Okay, and here we are going to this is the spindle support element is here, and in this that spindle housing we are going to fix the spindle is here. Okay, means with the help of that electrical motor or whatever power mechanism we are going to use, with the help of that power transmission mechanism we can rotate the spindle. Okay, and here at the end of that spindle we can hold the boring tool. Simple. Okay, then you have to remember here on that spindle housing. Okay, on that spindle housing we are going to use one here scale. Okay, with the help of this scale, for example, suppose like this. Okay, one scale is we are going to use on that spindle housing. Okay, with the help of that with the help of the scale we can easily understand how much the spindle is going to move inside, or also we can easily understand how much spindle is going to move in upward direction. Okay, means the movement of the spindle. Okay, how much distance your spindle is going to move downward, or how much distance your spindle is going to move upward is also we can easily analyze with the help of that scale, so that it is called as the precise. This is the very accurate and precise boring machine is there. Because of this purpose it is called as. Okay, because with the help of that scale we can easily and accurate we can say that that much amount of spindle is going to move downward, that much amount of spindle is going to move upward. Okay, that how the spindle is moving upward and downward with the help of this spindle housing square. Okay, with the help of that spindle housing fuel, we can move the spindle up and down direction. Okay, this is about the this is about the jig boring machine. Okay, you have to remember here we can use the jig boring machine whenever we want to require to produce the very high and very accurate and high precise boring operation is required. Okay, and here we will require that very high accuracy and precise operation. For simple, we can say that the jig boring machine we can use to perform the boring operation on the jig. We can perform the boring operation on the fixture. Then we can perform the boring operation on the dies, whatever dies we can using. Okay, to perform the boring operation on such type of the devices, we can use the jig boring machine, because to perform the boring operation on such type of the part, there very accuracy is required, so that we are going to use the jig boring machine, because in that jig boring machine the scales are provided on this housing and also on this table also. Okay, on this table also we are going to provide the one scale is here, and with the help of that scale also we can easily understood how much amount of table is going to rotate. Okay, here also we can rotate the table at the particular angle. Okay, and also here we can provided one scale is here, and with the help of the scale we can easily understood how much amount of table is going to rotate at that particular angle, because scale is provided so that it gives the accurate results. Okay, for this purpose. Okay, so that we can use this jig boring machine for the very accuracy and high precise operations, means boring. Okay, this is about the borings. Okay, so anybody having any problem is there? Okay, once again I will, if you are having any problem, please tell me. Once again I will summarize what is meant by the boring operation. The boring operations means it is the process of enlarging the already existing hole with the help of the boring tool. Okay, then boring machine, function of the boring machine is to perform the boring operation, and also on that boring machine we can perform the hilsing, drilling, reaming operation with the help of the different tools. Okay, then why the boring machine we are going to use, because boring operation is also performed on the lathe and drilling machine. Because suppose we want to perform the boring operation on heavy duty workpiece, and that heavy duty workpiece is not possible to hold and rotate with the help of the drilling machine and lathe machine, so that we are going to perform the boring operation on that heavy duty workpiece on the boring machines. Okay, inside that boring machine it consists of the one boring tool is there, and inside that boring tool, we are going to use the one single point cutting tool. Okay, and when we are rotating that single point cutting tool, means when we are rotating that boring bar, then that single point cutting tool means boring tool, it will be remove the metal from that already existing hole, and it will be enlarge the diameter of that existing hole. Okay, these are the basic classification of the boring machine: horizontal boring machine, vertical boring machine, jig boring machine, and special type boring machine is there. Then in that horizontal boring machine, the position of the spindle, it will be horizontally, or your spindle is going to rotate in horizontally like this. Okay, it consists of the blade, it is made from the cast iron. It will provide the support to that whole part of your horizontal boring machine. Then it consists of the two columns are also present in that horizontal boring machine. One column is called as the headstock supporting column, the another column is called as the end supporting column. Okay, on that headstock supporting column we can mount the headstock. Inside that headstock all power transmitting elements are present, and that headstock we can move up and down on that column with the help of that guide wheels. Okay, also it can stop the saddle. The saddle also we can move the longitudinally, and this table with the help of that cross slide we can move this table in transverse direction. Okay, and also the spindle, that spindle is also we can move in and out in this direction also with the help of that all the movements. Okay, with the help of that all the movements we can adjust the height of your workpiece and tool, and then we have to perform the boring operation. Simple. See, this is the boring bar is there inside on that boring bar. This is the boring tool is here, and that boring tool is in that hole. This is the workpiece is there. When we are giving the power to that electrical motor, it will be rotate, means that when electrical motor is rotating means your spindle is rotating and your boring bar is also start rotating, means your boring tool is rotating, and it will be remove the metal from that already existing hole, and it will produce the boring operation. This is about the horizontal boring machine. Then simple vertical boring machine. Again, in that vertical boring machine, you have to remember, okay, in that vertical boring machine, we are going to rotate the workpiece. We are going to rotate the workpiece, and we are kept that boring tool is constant. Okay, means only for feeding purpose we are going to move it. Only for feeding purpose we are going to move it. See, this is the vertical boring machine. It consists of the bed is there. On that bed, table is mounted. On that table we can mount the workpiece, and here we can use the rotary type of table. Okay, to rotate this table, whatever mechanisms are required, that mechanism it is consist into the bed. Okay, on the both the side of that bed we are going to use two columns are there, two vertical column we are going to use on the both the side of this bed. Okay, and on this column, on that vertical column, we are going to use the guideways. Okay, guideways are provided on that both the column. Here on this both the column, we are going to mount here one horizontal cross rail is here. This portion is called as the cross rail is here, and that cross rail it is parallel to this table. And on this cross rail also, okay, on this cross rail also we are going to, on this cross rail also we are going to provide the guideways. Okay, and on this cross rail, okay, on this cross rail we are going to hold tool heads are there, one or two tool heads we can easily mount on that cross rail. And with the help of the guideways which is provided on that cross rail, with the help of this guideways we can move this tool head in this left and right direction also. Okay, function of that tool holder is to tool head, the function of that tool head is to hold the boring tools. Okay, to hold the boring tool. Here inside that tool heads we can hold the boring tool, and also this boring tool also we can move up and down here also. Okay, and with the help of this up and down movement of the cross rail, okay, we can easily adjust the height between that height of your workpiece and tool, and then we can perform the boring operation. Here how we are going to perform the boring operation, just we are going to rotate this workpiece, and just we have to adjust this height between that or height of that workpiece and tool, and just have to rotate the workpiece. And when we are inserting that boring tool into that workpiece, okay, that time it will remove the material from that workpiece and it will perform the boring operation. Okay, just means just we are going to feed to that boring tool, and we are going to rotate this workpiece. Okay, this is the vertical boring machine. And when this is the jig boring machine, when we can use that jig boring machine, whenever we want to produce the very high accurate and precise boring operations required, whenever we require the very high accurate and precise boring operations required, that time we can use the jig boring machine. And where we can use the jig boring machine, simple, to perform the boring operation on the jig, to perform the boring operation on the fixture, to perform the boring operation on the dies, to perform the boring operation on the measuring instrument. Okay, for such type of equipment we can use the jig boring machine. Okay, simple say, inside that jig boring machine also it consists of the bed is there, saddle is there, table is there. And saddle we can move longitudinally. Okay, and also we can rotate this table also in all the direction. We can rotate the table, means here we are not giving the power to the table, means we are not giving the drive to the table, just we have to rotate this table at any angles. And to measure its angle also we are going to provide here one scale is here. Okay, and here in that jig boring machine we are going to use the housing is there, spindle housing, and that spindle housing we are going to attach on this column. Okay, with the help of the guideways provided on that column we can move that spindle housing up and down. Okay, to check the movement of spindle housing we are going to use here one scale is here. Okay, with the help of that scale we can easily understand how much amount of the spindle is going to move in downward, and how much amount of spindle is going to move upward direction. That direction or that distance also we can easily calculate, or we can easily measure with the help of that scale. Okay, so that it is called as the precise and accurate jig boring machine is there, because it directly showing the result, means it directly showing the distance, and this distance and this rotary angle also we can easily find out. Okay, this is about the boring machines. Okay, so anybody having any problem is there? Yes, anybody having any problem whether you understood or not?
Yes, sir. Understood.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Understood. Okay, in that last lecture we have seen the radial type drilling machine is here. Then tell me which motion we can achieve in radial drilling machine. Okay, in that radial drilling machine, we can move this radial arm up and down. Okay, then also on that radial arm we have mounted that drill head is here. Also that drill head also we can move in this direction also. We can move that drill head in left and right because here we are going to provide the guideways also here. Okay, that point it was I have not explained in that last lecture, so that once again I'm going to tell you. You have to remember that radial arm we can move up and down, and also on that radial arm we are going to provide the guideways also here, and on this guideway your drill head is going to move in left and right direction. Okay.